I have a gift for you. My third book, The Intentional Design Year, is out, and I want to give you access to read it. To get the digital copy for 1 month for free, go to www.designsuitecourses.com/intentional. Make sure and do the www. Because for some reason, that's the only way it will work. Anyway, this will get you free access to read the book for an entire month. If you love it, you can always go to Amazon and get the whole book plus the prompt journal. Welcome to the Make and Design podcast. I'm Carina Gardner, and today I want to talk about how attention is a limited resource. Now, we all know this. It is in our hearts. We know we only have 24 hours in a day. Some of that will be asleep, and that we have attention that can only go to the one thing that we're paying attention to in that moment. Or if you think you're me, you are probably doing some production work while you're watching a movie. But let's face it, I'm really not watching the movie, right? Because attention and multitasking, it's multitasking in particular isn't really a real thing, right? We're really focused on one thing at a time, and we're just doing our very best to get that thing done. So let's start a little bit with some research, because I think this will really help you understand a little bit more about this and think about it in terms of like a more objective view of how we're using our time and attention for our design businesses. So at the beginning of January, I did a design boot camp, and one of the things I talk about is really paying attention to the one or two things that you should be working on to get there. And a lot of what we're trying to do in our lives leaves us very scattered. This is why programs and courses, they have helped so many people, because we're paying attention to one thing. I'll even say, this is very fascinating to me, but Design Suite versus the university. In Design Suite, you have access to everything, so your attention is kind of everywhere. At the university, you only take 2 or 3 courses at a time, so your attention is very tightly focused, and you're getting graded on it, right? So let's talk about this a little bit. So some key research, there was a study done by Daniel Kahneman. He did some work on cognitive load, showing that our brain has a limited processing capacity. So when designers try to create while you're worrying about social media posts or money or validation or the algorithms or comparison, that's a big one for us, the creative quality actually suffers because your attention is split. I'll also say that these things do not serve you to worry about those things, right? Instead of just digging in and doing the work. That's in theory harder. I mean, in theory, it's easy. In practice, it's harder to really focus in so that your limited processing capacity really can just do the work that you really want to do, okay? A lot of times I find that designers think they have a skill problem. That's actually not the case. Almost always, what the research is suggesting is that it is an attention problem. You're worried about all of these things instead of just digging in and doing the work and feeling the joy in the work. You will figure it out. There is going to be time for you to worry and think about the things and figure out how to pivot or to be smarter about the way you're doing things. But also there's a time period here where you just need to do the actual work and really dig in, because creative quality suffers when attention is split. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about another study. This one's great. I love this study. I think I used it in my book, The Intentional Design The Intentional Design Year. Okay. Which, by the way, if you want to go grab and listen to it for free for a month, or not listen, read it for free for a month, we have it available for you guys at designsuitecourses.com/intentional. So you can go read it for a month and really enjoy it. Okay. So this particular study is called the famous invisible gorilla experiment. And what the researchers were trying to do is that they were trying to figure out how focus really worked. So it showed that when people focus on a single task, they completely miss obvious information right in front of them. So this one's really interesting because people were asked to, I think they were counting baskets. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but they were doing something very specific, and they were trying to keep count. About halfway through the experiment, a crazy gorilla, which I think it was just someone dressed up, walked through, stop, and like beat their chest or something, and then walked off the screen. Don't quote me on that. This is what I'm just kind of remembering, right? And so most of the people never saw the gorilla, you guys. Like most of the people, it's so obvious, but like people didn't see it. So what is this? What does this mean for us? Designers who focus only on trends, algorithms, or what others are doing, like that whole comparison thing, they often miss opportunities that were obvious in hindsight. I have run into this. I've run into other designers who've run into this. It's like, that was so obvious. We should have been doing that. But instead, we're so busy worrying or seeing all these things everybody was doing and being concerned about it or trying to chase them down, that we literally cannot see what is the most important thing that we should be attending to, the most obvious thing, okay? If you can think in your head of an opportunity that you might have missed because you were focused on doing, and I'm going to say this in quotation marks, the right things, okay? And a lot of times, I especially see this when it comes to free workshops or free advice that you'll see out there on the internet. And that is, the right way looks a certain way on the outside. But the right way inside of a program or in a course or in a degree program, I'm going to tell you, it looks different. It's not flashy. It's not what everybody thinks it is. It's usually these very dull, important steps that people are unwilling to do, or they're frustrated to do because they take time. And so because of that, people want that flashiness. They want things to be extra polished and extra beautiful and those types of things, when they should be just digging in and doing the work and doing the unflashy thing. Okay. I really think that we can only focus well on one thing at a time. And I'm not just talking about your daily tasks. I'm also talking about big projects. So back in, September, I knew I was going to write the book, The Intentional Design Year. And I was really struggling carving out the time for it. In fact, actually, I started the initial run of it. I started in April. And then so many other very important things took over, in particular with the University of Arts and Design. There's a number of big milestones that we're trying to hit. There's a lot of paperwork that I have to do. And I was really digging into some of those types of things. I also was building out operations for Carina Gardner Inc. And just everything got lost. And the reason it got lost is because my attention was all over the place. My attention was on an operations book and a book for my designers, and it was on new marketing pieces, and it was figuring out strategies that were new for social media. It was building workshops. It was traveling with my family. There were so many things going on that I really struggled to get anything done. And I just find in my life, and you can do however you want to do, but I'm just going to share this little strategy that I do, is I tend to really focus in for an entire month on one thing. So I have lots of activities I have to do, right? I'm still going to have meetings for Design Suite. I'm still having meetings for the university. I'm still digging in on operations and processes. But there's usually one core priority for the month that brings me back, that attention brings me back. And I'm like, this is the most important thing. If this stuff gets done, when I get these things done, then that will make me feel like that month was important. So that ended up being my October and November, actually. My October and November was the Intentional Design Year. I was like, I am just going to write this book literally every day. So that's what I did. So that was where my attention was. And then I released it in December. And then my activities in December really focused around annual planning. So I was like, if nothing else gets done, if annual planning for my family gets done, annual planning for Carina Gardner Inc. gets done, and annual planning for the university gets done, then I've won. We've done it. This is the right things we need to do, right? In January, it was, I think I can call it paperwork, policy writing and paperwork. That is my only focus this month. And my goal is to be done with it, the first drafts of everything by the end of this month, which is just in a few days. My goal is to finish it. Now, my next month is to review and edit it, right? So it's not like I have another big, new, different project. I'm still working on the same project. I've just broken it up into pieces. And that's how I keep it from being overwhelming, right? I think a lot of times we take a project and we go, okay, I'm going to finish this in a month. And really, it's a project that's going to take 4 or 5 months, right? So what I do is I break down all of those things specifically so that each month I can be working on them. Doesn't mean there aren't other activities going on, but whenever there's space or I make the space to finish those things, it is the natural thing that I will be working on to make things better. Pretty cool, right? And actually really easy because it's easy to kind of look at a month and go, this is the thing I'm going to try to accomplish, okay? I want to talk really quick before we end today about mindset and attentional bias, okay? So it's very interesting because mindset literally shapes what we notice. And there have been enough research and qualitative studies out there that have also shown that this also really shapes our reality. So I think about my kids in particular, and I will remember an event very differently than the way they remember an event. So I will say, this is what happened that day. And it's been 2 or 3 years for them and they're young, right? And they're like, that's not what happened. This is what happened. And it doesn't mean that both of us are right or wrong. It just means we have different realities around that event. Maybe where we were placed, what we were doing, maybe what we were doing before or after that event, right? So we have different realities. There was a qualitative study, and this one I'm just doing off the top of my head. I didn't write it down, but I was thinking about it because I like to quote it to my kids to talk to them about it. There was a study done on a pair of twins, and they had grown up, and one of them was in prison, and the other one was an executive of a big company. And when the researchers went in, and they went to the guy in prison first, they're twins, identical, I believe, had the same upbringing, all the stuff. There's no, like the EQ and the IQ, generally the same, okay? The researchers went in and talked to the guy in prison and basically said, hey, why do you feel like you turned out this way? And he said, well, how could I not? Look at my upbringing. Look at who my mom was. Look who my dad was. And proceeds to tell them all the reasons why he was in prison and how could it not be this way. Then they went to the twin who was the executive, and they asked him the exact same questions. Why do you think you turned out this way? And he gave the exact answers of the identical twin that was in prison. He said, well, how could I not? Look at my mother. Look at my father. Look at these things. And all the answers were basically the same. Now, the result was different. The result for the two people were completely different, but they gave the same answer. So what does that tell us? That we shape our own reality. And no matter the circumstances, and I've seen this a number of different times where they'll say, here's scenario 1, and they'll say, so-and-so, there's this woman, and everything wrong happened to her. Her car crashed on Monday, she did it, and just like will spew all these horrible things that happen. They'll be say, okay, how about recipient 2? Recipient 2 received a raise on Monday, and then this happened to her, and this happened, and this happened. And at the end, they reveal that scenario 1 and scenario 2 were not two different women. It was the same woman, and it was the same timeline. It was just the pieces of the day they chose to pick out. So all the negative stuff versus all the positive stuff. And the truth is that every single one of us gets to choose what the reality is. And that is one of the most powerful things I think I've learned about mindset and my thoughts around what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes you will hear someone say, like, their life is so hard, and if you ever actually took a really good look at their life, they might maybe have as equal or even more wonderful things happening in their life than you do. But they think their life is horrible because they have focused in on all the horrible things. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people who don't have bad things happen to them, but we get to choose what we decide to spend all our time on. I have met women who have really actually had horrible lives, have horrible things to happen to them. And they are fully focused on the good things that day. They're talking about the silver linings, the magical things. And I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, if I were in her shoes, that was a really rough day. I don't know if I could do it. And that person has a smile on their face and they're excited for life. And it's because it's the reality they've chosen. I think we see this a lot. I spent some time in my early 20s in Africa. We have these fantastic neighbors from Rwanda. And many of you know horrible things happen to there. These neighbors are some of the happiest, most grateful people we have ever met. And they've lived like true atrocities. And once again, you guys, we choose our realities. And what we decide to focus on is how our mindset is going to be. Okay? So there are tons of studies out there on attentional bias that show that anxiety or scarcity-based mindsets tune the brain to look for threats and failures. That your brain is actually looking for threats and failures. And those people who are anxiety or have scarcity-based mindsets, they're looking for that. Opportunity becomes very hard to notice when this exists, because you're already filling up your brain with those things. It's kind of like that. There's some talk around like, you can't feel love in your heart at the same time as, something else, anger or sadness or whatever. And it is true. It's very hard, right? So if you fill your brain up with things that are hard, traumatic, negative, it's going to be really hard to then feel all the wonderful and good and grateful things that you have in your life, right? You guys, I'm going to end it there, but I just want to say your mindset matters and how you go into this year matters. And the way we think about the wonderful things in our lives and the more we fill our hearts up with love, excitement, interest for what is for us, the better it's going to be for us. That's what I'm going to say. And I know that this year can be phenomenal for you. You just have to decide what your reality is going to be. You have a hard job, but you are grateful that you can make money, right? That's a silver lining in it. There's always a silver lining in everything I do. And I also always think about how grateful I am that I'm overwhelmed and I have a lot of work. And then I'm like, lucky you, Carina. Lucky you. You get to be overwhelmed because you have so much work. You are so lucky. And I think that when we go into this feeling and embracement of gratitude and positivity, that more of that comes to you. And it's hard not to see all the wonderful things that are going to come to you.